Welcome to episode 137 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today I get to interview Satori Shakoor. She's a singer, actress, writer, and award-winning storyteller who has devoted her later years to helping others embrace the healing power of storytelling. Satori's journey took her from the Motown music scene and stages around the world to the creation of an organization that transforms individuals and entire communities through storytelling. In our conversation, Satori spoke about her own experience with grief and how sharing her story brought both healing and connection. She explained why listening is just as powerful as telling and how true storytelling creates empathy across differences. We also discussed her one-woman film, Confessions of a Menopausal Femme Fatale. The movie breaks the silence around menopause and challenges the cultural stigmas that too often rob women of their own voice. Some of the key themes of our interview include how storytelling can help process grief, connect across divides, and even strengthen entire communities. The importance of teaching people not only how to tell their stories, but also how to truly listen with empathy. Why Satori believes midlife is the time to shed fear, embrace freedom, and boldly step into creativity and purpose. To tell us more about her story and what gives her life more meaning and purpose after turning 50, please welcome storyteller Satori Shakoor to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Satori. I really appreciate the time. I've got to know, what is the secret society of twisted storytellers? That is just fascinating to me.
The Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers is a platform that I founded in 2012. I had just come back from 6 years. I actually crawled back from the numb of hell after losing my mother and son within 9 months. And I crawled back from hell 6 years later, and I started telling stories around the country with the moth. And I found that telling my story of grief and loss was healing me. It was freeing me, and it seemed that it was freeing the listeners that heard it. And then I started to have letters or emails from around the world thanking me for telling the story. So I began to think that maybe storytelling is a service. And I found that it was my purpose. So 6 years later, I'm in Detroit. Wall Street had crashed. I'm living in a friend's basement. I come up and sit in her garden having a cup of coffee, and it occurred to me as an artist, if storytelling could heal me, could it heal the city of Detroit? Because the city of Detroit was just coming back from emergency management, the Flint water crisis, water shutoff, gentrification, disappearing tax base, abandoned homes, all kinds of assaults on it. And it was coming back. You could see little signs of life. And I thought, storytelling can heal me. Could it heal the city of Detroit? And the idea just possessed me. And I didn't have any money, but as artists, we don't do things in a linear fashion. If you have money, great. If you don't have money, you start where you are. So I started this platform, and we sold out 45 seats. And from that first event, which happened July 19, 2012, we did a monthly event that every month we had to move to a larger venue. And I would curate 4 storytellers to tell true and personal stories on a pre-selected curatorial theme. And it expanded into musical performances, dance performances, and digital art shows. And now we have returned to the Wright Museum in the very heart of the Cultural Center of Detroit, and we continue.
This sounds...
Going into our 14th year.
14th year. This sounds really interesting. So you're getting people to come together, and you know what they're going to be talking about in advance, so you're curating it. But they're telling their stories of their life in Detroit and what the city meant to them. And
I can tell a story on anything. Some of the storytellers are people who have come from other places, other countries. We've had to tell their story. We've had George Clinton. We had the late Dick Gregory. We've had comedians Michael Collier, poets Naomi Magic Long, and senators and irregular everyday people, kids. And I found early on, actually the first show, that even though everyone does have a story, which I call a little package of wisdom to offer, they don't know how to tell a story. So I would then coach them. And that turned into a whole other expression, which is facilitating workshops. So I facilitate workshops for governmental agency, health institutions, universities, faith-based organizations, individuals, you name it. If they want to learn how to tell a story, or I can use storytelling to accomplish their vision or their mission or goal, I have created that as something that people want to do. And it seems more and more people want to use storytelling in their businesses and organizations, or just to bring personal stories rather than do a PowerPoints in front of people they want to enroll in whatever they're doing.
I'm absolutely with you on that. I believe that stories connect us in ways that we never thought possible. And the fact that you can take people on exact polar opposites of any spectrum, put them together in a room, have them sharing their stories, and they will find something to connect about. And I just love the idea that you're encouraging people to get out there and share their stories. Yes, it's sad that you started this after the loss of a child and your mom. And it
probably would not have occurred after that. I find often that people, when they have life-altering experiences, they are transformed in some way. They are never the same. So their thinking, their heart, their ideas, their visions, somehow, I don't know why it is, turn to wanting to connect with other people or to help other people through the journey they just took. I don't know why that happens, but it does. And we do have a global mission to connect humanity, heal and transform community, and to provide an uplifting, thought-provoking, soul-cleansing experience through the art and craft of storytelling. And at the same time, develop listeners, people who can have a listening span beyond a 3-minute soundbite or a 1-minute soundbite, because storytelling is an art, it's a craft, and it's a science. And if you learn how to tell your story, learn the tools in the craft, then you will hit two of those, which is the craft and the science. And your brain just takes over. It emits hormones like oxytocin, dopamine, which are hormones that engender empathy, which, as you said, find something in that story that goes beyond differences and goes straight to the humanity of the person.
Mm-hmm. It also talks to the need for people who are going through that grief to talk about the people that they're grieving. So many of us say, oh, don't mention Uncle Joe because it's going to make her sad to talk about it. When they definitely, absolutely, with every fiber of their being, want to talk about it, because when they do, they keep him alive inside them. Yes. So
they release the pain.
Exactly.
Because it just harbors inside. But then when you put it out into the world, then you have this community of other people who had suffered losses, which that is everyone.
And also, when people who are grieving are hearing stories about their loved one from other people, it isn't making them sad. Many times those are stories they've never heard. And now they get an entirely new perspective on this person, and they start cherishing those memories in their heart even more.
Yeah, one of the most enjoyable parts of a funeral for me is when people get up and talk about the loved one that has passed on and the things that they didn't know. And oftentimes it cracks up the people who have attended the funeral, and it places in your heart and in your thinking the joy.
That's right. It makes the person more human. And when you hear their faults and their little idiosyncrasies and their quirks and things like that people have enjoyed for their entire life. So yeah, I'm encouraged that you are encouraging people to share those kind of stories and to get out there and connect with people in that way.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that you're developing listeners as well. And I think that's so important too, because we often listen for an opening to start talking again rather than just listening to what the person is actually trying to say. How do you develop those kind of listeners?
Through storytelling, because storytelling immediately engages us. We're always going to be little kids who want to hear a story. And we are always going to be someone that if you we have a live audience over sometimes 350 people, and in the case of George Clinton was over 1,000 people, and you can hear a pin drop sometime, explosion of laughter, people holding hands, intense moments with people they've never met who are sitting next to them. But I do understand and know, as you do, that listening is something you volunteer to the other person. It's a generosity. It's an act of kindness. You can't make people listen. They can sit there quiet and in protest and wait till you finish and then demonstrate, I don't care what you're saying. But I do believe that listening is a revolutionary act. And at the highest level, it's love.
Right.
And that's how I set my audience up every month is to open them up to listening to the storytelling, that they're not there just to sit and let something happen to them, that they are participating, they are being interactive with the person telling the story. And so they then therefore are always giving of themselves. And that helps the storyteller become more comfortable, more forthcoming, more relaxed, and therefore tell a more powerful story.
That's right. When the storytellers feel they're connecting with people that are listening to it, it motivates them and energizes them to share even more. I like that. What aspects of listening do people not generally follow? Would you say that we really need to work on more?
I think most people listen to agree or not agree. They listen, they're not really listening. Hearing what the other person says, they may cut the person off if they get triggered by something that the person is saying. So really, listening is a skill. It's not really something that we're taught in elementary school like math or anything else. We're taught to agree, disagree, become triggered, or take sides, or shut down, so it's something you have to perhaps train yourself to do. Now, as a person who facilitates stories and storytellers, I am training myself to listen. And because I listen to stories, I realize everyone, when they are communicating, are telling a story. So that's how I listen. And then I can follow them, follow the story that they're telling, and I can hear into what they're saying. So when I ask them a question or repeat back something they said, they're often very surprised. And it creates a sense of trust. Oh, she really heard me. Because I don't even think people expect to be heard. We can go a whole lifetime and never have the experience of truly being heard.
And the whole idea of listening to understand is something that is foreign to our society here. It is, we want to listen, like you said, to learn, am I going to agree with this person? Or is he or she going to say something which will trigger me to say, this person has nothing that I want to hear?
Yes.
Yeah.
And people go up and say, I know where you're going. And you don't.
That's right. And the interruptions and looking off into the behind them to see what else or other people that they would like to talk is disrespectful when you think about it.
Yes, it could be disrespectful if you're doing it intentionally or with some kind of awareness. But I just think that people just don't have that skill in their toolkit. And also, we like small talk. We like superficial conversations. We're often caught off guard when someone actually is being vulnerable, actually speaking to you with some depth.
That's right. Otherwise, we're hiding behind masks, right? How are you? Oh, I'm fine. When you could be ripping apart inside because there's some problem that you're having or a grief that you've got, and you've got to put on this mask and pretend that you're fine when in fact you're not. And when we actually share that vulnerability with other people, it really drives that connection, I think.
Yes. Yes.
What kind of training do you provide for people to listen better? Is there specific things that you're doing, or are you just encouraging them to listen to stories and then recall what they've been listening to?
I really don't train the audience
Okay.
because if the story is good enough, they're going to listen. And if that and the storyteller is in a spotlight and that's what you came to hear, what I do in the beginning of every show is give that audience a job. And that job is to listen. And I also say things to them like listening is very challenging. You have to give up something. You have to give up your judgments, your assessments, your opinions, and just be a space to receive what the other person is saying. Because we often, we're judging machines. So you stand up there and you're going to go, look at her shirt.
That's right.
She looks like my aunt. Doesn't she look like my Aunt George? And then you've it's yeah.
That,
And you've missed maybe some key things.
that's right. Exactly. So you're training storytellers how to tell better stories. Okay. What are some of the components of a story that people really need to focus on?
I usually work with 3 tools. The first, your story should be simple. That means that anyone listening from someone 8 or 9 to someone 80 should be able to hear your story and be able to the extent of their lived experience, get something from it. We've had babies sit on the knee of their mothers in the audience and because they can hear the cadence and the musicality of the voice, and also they're also imitating the audience. You often hear babies sometime in situations with speeches and they'll cry. These babies sit and listen because they are being spoken to. They know that they're being included in that whole space. But I work with 3 tools. The story should be simple. The story should start in the action. A lot of people think that they need to warm up to the story. They talk. And the audience is just, okay, they're talking. But if you're in the action, I'm driving down I-75, it's snowing, it's the dead of winter, I hit an ice patch, my car spins, I'm moving toward, I'm gonna hit it, and I'm gonna be in a car accident, it's like my son, and my car is facing ongoing traffic. You can see that.
Absolutely.
Your mind makes the movie, and you can either just create the action. You may get to a bridge, which a bridge is a manipulation perhaps of time. 3 years later, or story has to have stakes. The higher the stakes, the more compelling the story, the more on edge the person is on the edge of their seat. That's one of the things that people have difficulty identifying in their stories, the stakes. I often have to point out the stakes. I also have to point out to storytellers the greatness of their being. Oh, that was nothing. What do you mean? Do you hear how extraordinary you are? They just relax into this social sort of rule. Don't brag, be modest, don't say. No, I encourage you to brag. Not brag, but just stand for your accomplishment. Stand for the things that you know you have created. You don't have to brag about it. Every human being has that ability and capacity in whatever area they're in. So the story must be simple, starting the action, and have some stakes. And if you watched any movie, if I were to conduct a whole class, I would bring out a few movies, comedy, drama. I would bring out some documentary and show people how the story starts. It's always starting in some kind of action. They always set up the stakes. Are they going to kidnap the wife? If there's a child in the story, the stakes go up exponentially.
This is so contrary to how we're taught to speak in schools, where we have to get up there and we have to have our controlling purpose and we have to have our 3 main points that we want to make, and we have to lay down the background before we can get into the story. And you're absolutely right. When you were giving the example of the car spinning out of control, you're immediately drawing the person into the story rather than saying, oh, I was on my way to work because I had a meeting at 11 o'clock and blah, 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 blah. And then 3 minutes later, get into this. It doesn't have the same punch. I love that.
We also set up the stakes in the action because are you going to survive with the oncoming traffic? What's going to happen next? That's what the dopamine and oxytocin is doing in the brain. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And that keeps you glued.
And so by stakes, you're also talking how it impacts you personally, like the result of the accident or the story, that kind of thing, the illness that you might have had. Okay. So are you training the storytellers like one-on-one, or are you doing courses for them? Okay.
I'm training the 4 that I curate. We do 1 hour each week for 4 weeks, and then we have a rehearsal with all the storytellers. Then they take the stage. When I'm facilitating a workshop, we may have 3 or 4 workshops. And like I did a workshop for the Zoological Society, and there were 50 people there. So we had about 12 hours of training. And all they wanted to do as docents, as teachers, they wanted to be more personal when they did the tours rather than just present this sort of distant story about. They wanted to bring also with the Henry Ford House, the Edsel Ford House here, the docents, instead of just talking about the objects, they wanted to be more personal. When I first came and I saw this vase, I was so curious about it. So storytelling is the most effective delivery system of information and ideas. You cannot lose with it. So if it's the most effective delivery system of information ideas, then it's the number one communication tool that we all are unfortunately missing and not learning how to do.
I agree. Absolutely. And the training before the stage is neat so that you're preparing people for doing that. And is this in a group setting?
No, it's one-on-one.
It's on one-on-one. Okay.
Sometimes I don't even see the storyteller until the rehearsal.
Okay.
And then that's the first time I may be meeting them. And we have talked about many intimate things. What coaching does is give them confidence. They have a map. They know where they start, they know where they're going, and they know what their message is. Because at the end of the day, you're telling this story to deliver your message.
So you're doing it one-on-one. So this is where you can also pick out holes where you might say, tell me more about this, or I think the audience will be asking about this. Okay.
Some storytellers come, they've told their story for years. We're going to pull it apart.
So you are also the executive director of the Society for the Reinstitutionalization of Storytelling. What is this going to do?
It's a nonprofit 501c3.
Okay.
So we raised funds to offset the cost of the live event or to do workshops or whatever else under the storytelling umbrella.
Okay. So it's all connected to the Twisted Storyteller. And okay.
The Twisted Storytellers came first. 2 years later, an attorney who was in the audience looked at the number of seats, looked at the ticket price, and asked, were we a nonprofit? I said, no. He said, you'll never be able to sustain this. I will help you get nonprofit status. And 3 months later, we had it. So this nonprofit came second. And so I'm the executive director. I'm an artist, not an administrator type of person. I wanted to do everything right. So I immediately hired a bookkeeper. and then I found a grant writer. And over the years, I've developed a great team, a great board, great production team. But in the beginning, it was very hard because I didn't know, but I was divinely guided.
So the nonprofit organization is raising money to help you do the storytelling events.
Yes, and
Okay.
other projects that we do under that.
Does that include doing classes for kids, going into schools and teaching them a little bit of storytelling magic?
Oh, I've gone into many high schools. Yes. So I've gone into high schools. I've gone into middle schools. Yeah.
That's great because,
I just,
like I said, they're woefully unprepared for doing storytelling or actually any public speaking when they're graduating from most public schools today. So you're introducing that heart into the story, which will make their stories more memorable and allow them to impact their audiences. I love that story. I really do. That's-
yeah.
So you're also a singer, I understand. Yes. How long have you been doing that?
Oh my goodness. Started pl- I started playing violin in the second grade. I was professional by age 15, playing on records coming out of Motown here in Detroit. And I was in chorus, and I discovered I could sing. And then I got in a little three-girl group here, which included Martha Reeves' baby sister, who I went to junior high school with. And then by the time I got to university, I was completely done with the violin. And I decided to major in voice, but I didn't want to be an opera singer. And I just kept saying, I want to be a star. I want to be a star. And I moved to New York to record an album, and the producer ran off with the masters and the money. And I stayed in New York. And then my friend from Detroit, who lived in New York as well, said, they're having auditions back in Detroit for a new group called the Brides of Funkenstein. You should go. So I scraped up the airfare, went to Detroit, and auditioned for what was to become the Brides of Funkenstein. And then they sang background vocals on stage and in the recording studio with George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic, Bootsy, Zap Band, anything coming out of the P-Funk, I guess, enterprise.
Okay. Super. That's fascinating. So it's neat how those doors open and you walked into them. So it's
I
just
did at the very height of their fame. So the first audience I played in front of was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 10,000 people.
wow. And so what caused you to give up violin?
I had just completed that journey.
Okay.
Violin helped me. I was possessed by it, and I was playing in 4 orchestras and a jazz group by the time I graduated. And it helped me walk past things that were going on in my neighborhood. It helped me have a focus and a passion that delivered me from any influences that may have taken me in a different direction. I was more fascinated with music and some of the exciting things that music led me into, and than I was by boys at the time. Everything was delayed for me.
That's right. But you turned to music. You still stayed with music, and this was the
Oh yeah,
vocals,
oh
right?
yeah. I became a musical theater artist, an actor. I was doing musical theater for years, and I was in Menopause the Musical, and I was in 2 hit shows at the same time. One in Toronto where I was living at the time, and one here in Detroit, Menopause the Musical, and then The Kink in My Hair in Toronto, which was a huge hit. We went to California, we won NAACP awards. We went to England, sold out, lines around the block. And then we had a 20-year anniversary in December 2022. Yeah, December 2022.
Okay. So the Confessions of a Menopausal Femme Fatale is a musical that you were in?
Oh,
No,
that's my personal
your
story.
story. Okay.
And it's a film. It's a stand-up storytelling concert film. And you can access it on Amazon Prime, Apple TV Plus, and Google. And I started writing that in 2018, but it's a promise that I made to my younger self when I was entering into perimenopause. And I was having all of these symptoms that led me, who is this? Who am I? Hot flashes, mood swings, night sweats, palpitating heart, insomnia, And I was asking my mother and older people, older women around me, what is going on? And my mother, I don't remember. Or some women, I'm too young, and they clearly weren't. Or I refuse. And I'm like, if you're lucky enough to live long enough, you're probably going to go through this. And there were no research on it. Doctors were misdiagnosed. There was hormone replacement therapy and other things that sometimes, and every woman is different. And so I was going through a very tough time and with the symptoms. So I promised myself, I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go through it with great awareness so that on the other side, I can write about it and give younger women the ability to know, to at least have some awareness. Because at the time, we're all socialized and we're all conditioned through the patriarchal lens. Now, I don't think that patriarchy is good for women or men or children or for society. It may look like it's giving more benefits to men, but at the end of the day, it limits our full self-expression because I find that men are limited to very few emotional outlets and expressions, and often those outlets are anger, or if you have one more emotion than you're supposed to, you're not a masculine man. And then women have to give up their brain, their intellect, and they have to be demure and submissive, and they have to be perky and juicy and be able to reproduce. If not, they have no value through that lens. And I found that, wow, 45, 50, 60, you're telling me that all this lived experience, all of these skills and talents that I've developed over all this time aren't of any value?
Exactly.
I'm a female that isn't attractive to you to have sex with? That's preposterous. Why I made this movie, and it's bigger than menopause. It also, what the point of the movie is to bust these taboos, to bust the myths, to take the stigma out of the natural functioning of aging in a woman's body. Because from the time we have our periods till babies to menopause, there's shame attached to it. It's not something we should talk about, and it ages us. And so I talk about things that women aren't allowed to talk about, or not publicly anyway, like postpartum depression.
That would be very similar.
Very similar, and that if you don't talk about it, then it consumes you, and it also denies others the sense of community. Oh, that's happening to me too. And now that menopause, and then I made the movie to get women to talk, and now I filmed it in 2023, and now women are talking about it. Halle Berry she wants to be the face of menopause and a spokesperson. You have Oprah doing a primetime special, Maria Shriver. You have all of these very powerful women. Even here in Michigan, our Governor Whitmer and the Michigan Women's Commission, whom I work with, they are going across the state of Michigan, making women aware of menopause. They have panels of menopause doctors, sex therapists, psychologists, storytellers, researchers who are providing an education to women. And some women have to wait a whole year to see someone who is trained in menopause because doctors only get 1 hour of training in menopause in their medical education. And the largest demographic in the United States are women in some stage of menopause. And there is no health insurance for women going through this, and menopause can be very severe in some women, and it shows up differently in every woman, and because culturally we're different, racially we're different, and we're socialized different. So it's something that we need to know about in advance of when it comes on. Okay.
I
So that we can handle those symptoms, we can handle our health. And then when we handle those things, then the gifts of the spiritual, the mental, the psychological start to happen. And we start to take ownership and we start to define ourselves, free ourselves. I believe menopause should be a rite of passage. It should be like a bat mitzvah. It should be a menopause mitzvah where women are celebrating how I am now free, I'm fully expressed, I am free to create, I am free to speak, I am free to say what's there, I'm free to run for president, governor, I can become a CEO, I can become anything that I want at this stage of life. Nothing is stopping me.
That's a very good point. You raised a number of good points. Number one, nobody prepares women for menopause. I have talked to a number of people on this platform, Forward from 50, who have said they have been caught so off guard with the emotions, the physical changes, etc. And you are absolutely right. They're not talking about it. We teach young girls what to expect before they start having their periods, a year or two in advance, so they can talk about the hormone changes, the body changes, and all the other things associated with that. But menopause is like a taboo subject in this community and our society. And I don't understand why. Maybe it's because it signals that a woman is getting older and, like you had
Yes.
said, would no longer be attractive, should no longer be considered valid in her appearance or the things she has to say. And that's why nobody's talking about it, but it's absolutely essential that they do.
It also denies, first of all, a person in menopause, perimenopause, you touch the lives of everyone around you. Your husband, your kids, your coworkers, you're an employer or an employee, and it all has some kind of impact on our lives. And can you imagine if you knew about what was happening with you, you could share it with your family, your husbands, and then they could be a support.
Right.
Or look about this large demographic of women. That's a huge community. 2 million women come into menopause every single day.
That's incredible. So you're right. If you put all of those people together, it would be very supportive and people would realize that, okay, this is just a phase. This is what's going to happen to me. But on the other end of that, this vast array of opportunity opens. So I like that. You had mentioned that women giving up their brains. It's funny because I'm the dad of 3 daughters. So it happened to all 3 of them when they were in middle school. They all dumbed themselves down specifically for men. They were brilliant in science and math in elementary school. They got to middle school and they didn't want to be the brain anymore. They didn't want, because they got picked on for that kind of stuff. So they just stopped expressing themselves that way. So it's great to have women like you out there encouraging, especially these younger women, to know that is their superpower is your brain, and you really need to lean into that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did it take for you to get this film on Apple and Prime and Google and all that kind of stuff? That seems like it'd be a artist process to go through.
What the whole journey from the pen to the page to the stage to the finding a director, finding a distributor. The distributor part was easy because I hired a PR firm and they advised me where I could go to get a distributor, and which allowed me to own 100% of the film. And that was obviously attractive to me. Plus, it provided me with the opportunity of distributing my work globally. Now I'm in the phase of making people aware of the film, which I thank you very much for having me on your show to introduce me to your audience and perhaps have them watch the film. This isn't about pharmaceutical remedies. It's my story, and it addresses a lot of the things that I just talked about, what women don't talk about. It's funny, it's jaw-dropping, it's raw, it's revealing, it's hilarious, and it's a roller coaster. But at the end, there's redemption. And that's what I want people to understand, that no matter where what your life looks at any given snapshot moment. If you're still breathing, you have the opportunity to grow.
That's excellent. I like that very much. When you're going through, because you ran a nonprofit, you've been a singer, etc. Now you're owning 100% of your film. It sounds like you had to jump into uncharted territory and become a businesswoman as well through all of this. Was that uncomfortable for you, or did you learn any big
Very
lessons?
uncomfortable. I first had to become an entrepreneur, although I didn't know what the word meant early on in my career when I was an actor, because I'm as a Black actor, the opportunities that were auditions and things like that weren't plentiful. And so if I had an idea or if I wanted to act, or I had to create it. So I created few one-woman shows. And when I got to Toronto, I wanted to produce one play I fell in love with. And I went around to all the theaters, and they said, our mandate it doesn't include this, and our mandate doesn't include that. They had one Black actor in one show per season, and they were getting all this diversity dollars from the government, and which I didn't care. I wasn't hung up on that. But I thought to myself, it would be easier to start a theater company than to beg for one play. 12 actors, top actors in Toronto, we got together and founded Obsidian Theater Company. And it's been in existence now for 25 years. It's the most diverse theater company in the country of Canada. And I'm so proud that when I went back in 2022 to sit next to the artistic director of Obsidian Theater Company, and she had no idea I was a founding member. So you feel good when time has passed and somebody who is actually the artistic director of something you founded doesn't even know who you are, which I think is great. You know what I mean?
Talk about legacy. My goodness. Yes. So you open this opportunity for people, because it sounds like the old way of doing it was very much a quota. We have to have a diverse thing. So we're going to have our one and only Black person, and that is going to represent our diversity. And you said, oh no, we're much bigger than that and much more diverse than that. And you brought a lot of voices together and created something that is continuing for years.
Developing playwrights and producers and classes and giving people, young actors, something to know that there's something for them when they go through this training. There's some outlet for their expression.
It's like an incubator to help people just grow and develop their skills. That's really cool. If you could roll the clock back, is there anything you do differently with your life?
I would just probably do the things that I know now sooner. I would have been more supportive of myself sooner. I would not have listened to voices that were discouraging whatever it was that I was up to and delayed my jumping into it. Because people often become afraid. Like my mother was very protective, and there are people sometimes that you have around you that you don't know don't really understand your artistic mind and your drive, and they may caution you against making certain choices. And sometimes you don't follow through because you let their fear attach to your drive. But you eventually do the thing that compels you to do it. But if I were to do anything differently, it would be to cut through all that noise.
Absolutely. That's one thing that we've heard a lot of people over 50 talking about, how they have wanted in their heart to do something. They feel called in this specific direction, but well-meaning friends, family, adult parents, etc., tell them, no, you can't make any money on that. Who's going to be interested in that? You have to do something more practical. So they tamper down this fire within them and go off and be bored doing the practical things. And then when they get to 50, they realize, no, this is still smoldering in me and I've got to do it. And so that's the ideal opportunity for them to go back into their life and find what gave them spark, life, imagination back then, and really embrace it after 50.
And my film addresses that too. I have a story in my film about that. My mother's, that's a good job you got as a secretary. But no, I'm an actor, I'm a writer. And because her greatest dream was to be a secretary. And she wanted me to have a job that I could support myself. And this artistic thing was iffy at both. So you got to have something to fall back on.
Yep.
Okay, I'm glad I learned to type. I'm glad I could support myself as a secretary. But at a certain point, I was fearful because you have a job now and you now have an apartment and you now have furniture and things and you have to pay the car note. And so how do you just quit your job? I did, because there was never going to be a time when I wasn't going to have, when there was never going to be an ideal time to quit my job unless I hit the lottery.
That's
or
right.
something. I booked a job with whatever that was huge. And so I just took that leap and quit my job and found other things to do. And it was almost like little miracles.
So we call them God assignments. If you're following that, he opens doors and great things happen. Do you have any advice for people over 50 who may be struggling with what to do to give their life more meaning and purpose?
I don't really give advice,
Okay.
because I know that if you're 50 and you're over 50, that you know deep within yourself exactly what it is that you want to do. And I just say, do it. Just be unstoppable.
That's great.
Take that first step.
That's simple and powerful. You're right. Just, you already know. You've got permission. Get Satori's permission to go out and do whatever it is that's in your heart.
Well, so really give yourself the permission, because you can't really fail because you've already built a life that you can always go back to. So just create a new life.
Excellent. How can people connect with you if they would like to learn more about you?
They can visit my website at satorishakoor.com. And if you want to learn more about the Twisted Storytellers, you can go to twistedtellers.org.
Super. Are you active on Facebook or any other social media?
Look, I'm on Instagram. We have a YouTube channel of the storytellers because we videotape every show. We live stream it globally. And you can go there and watch our stories, the storytellers. Yeah. So you can just Google me and you'll find page after page.
Thank you so much for sharing your story today. I was really impressed and motivated by it. You're a great storyteller, and I'm so glad that you're sharing those gifts with other people to turn them into storytellers as well.
Thank you. And I wish all three of your daughters the very best. I know their brains are big now and they have no fear, right?
That's right. That was a fun interview with Satori Shakoor. As she reflected on her journey, Satori noted that life after 50 has given her the freedom to live and create without apology. What gives her the deepest sense of meaning today is watching others discover the power of their own voices. She finds purpose in coaching people to tell authentic stories, creating platforms where those stories can be heard, and in helping audiences to become generous, engaged listeners. At the heart of her work is the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers, a Detroit-based nonprofit she founded in 2012. What started as a small gathering has grown into a vibrant cultural institution, hosting curated live events, performances, and workshops that feature everyday people alongside world-renowned artists. Their mission is to connect humanity, heal communities, and provide uplifting, thought-provoking, soul-cleansing experiences through the art of storytelling. Satori's story reminds us that, after 50, we don't need permission to follow the call of our hearts. We already know what gives our lives meaning, and that becomes the key to simply start. To learn more about Satori and the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers, visit www.satorishakoor.com or find her on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. That's all for this week's show. If you'd like to start living a more meaningful life, I encourage you to download our free guide to finding purpose, which is available at www.forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thanks for listening, and if you like this show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.